Greetings. In this video, I am going to be discussing intervals. Now, intervals are distances between notes. Now, the best place to start is where there isn't any distance between the notes, are unison. So if I were to play, let's say, a B and a B, that's a unison interval. There's no change, no distance in between them. Now, the distances are just going to increase by step, which our frets do for us. So let's say I have a C, and I go to C sharp, that's a minor second. Okay, if I go 2 frets, that's a major second. So that's how we're going to define our intervals, is by how many steps. I'm going to have a link to a document in the description below. If you pull up that document, it's going to have all the intervals and their associated number of frets that defines their distance. Now we have unison, seconds, thirds, fourths, a tritone, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and our octave. I know that sounds like a lot. There's pairings, and we're trying to organize 12 different notes, right? So you'll see, especially when you look at the document and it's all organized, it can be a little ugly at first, but when you work with this information, it starts to make a lot of sense. So we've got seconds, and there's a minor second. Think minor and major chords. The minor tends to be a little bit more tense, and a major second is a little brighter, right? Well, then we've got a minor third, and then we've got a major third, and then we've got our fourth. Now, we say a perfect fourth rather than a minor or major fourth. There's just one fourth. If I bump it up a step, that's an augmented fourth. In music theory, you might approach a situation where you put a sharp on your fourth note, and they call it an augmented fourth rather than referring to your tritone, because tritone's an interval, but we're looking at scale degrees in certain contexts. And so that's why this term comes up for augmented and diminished fourths and fifths, or even your octave. So perfect fourth, perfect fifth. If I augment my fifth, or if I diminish my fifth, then I'm just bumping it up or down a step. Kind of just a sharp or a flat. Now, in between your fourth and your fifth, there's my fourth, and there's my fifth, and you can notice those kind of sound similar. If I were to actually go, instead of going up a fourth, if I were to go down a fifth, it's kind of a similar relationship. So they invert, and you get a very, very similar sound, which is why they're kind of grouped together as the perfect intervals. Now, in between those two is our tritone, the most dissonant note that we can get through just a basic interval. You've got, minor ninth and your major seventh are also really dissonant, but tritone kind of takes the prize. It's halfway across our whole scale of all 12 notes. It's the seventh, and then when we get to 13, we're back on our starting note. It's a really cool interval. It only occurs once naturally in a major scale. So if you were to take all your notes in, let's say C major, you're only going to get a tritone between 2 notes, and those are B and F. And it's also, you can go up from F or down from F to B, and vice versa, up from B or down from B to F, and you get a tritone either way. Very symmetrical, which is actually really useful in certain contexts, as we'll learn as we go deeper into music theory. Anyways, let's go up from our fifth. So now we have a sixth. Minor sixth is going to be C to A flat. Kind of sad sounding. Major sixth, a little brighter. Minor seventh, major seventh, and octave. And then after that, you've got a minor ninth, major ninth. But that stuff's going to come up a lot more in jazz context, when you think about like a ninth chord or a 11th chord, 13th chord. For this situation, and most of the theory we're going to be getting into, we generally think up to an octave. I would go ahead and take the time to really familiarize yourself with this material. It's really useful to know. We're going to be building chords out of intervals and talking about them a lot. And it's just helpful to understand they're just simple distances. And it's really good to know generally what they sound like. In music school, they'll often require students to do a lot of writing counterpoint, which makes you just grind through intervals like crazy, and You work with them so much that you get to know them inside and out. If you really want to get to know your intervals, I would encourage you to study your way through. A really classic document is Gradus ad Parnassum by Johann Josef Fuchs. I will provide at least a description, if not a link to where you can find it in the description below. But working with this stuff really just trains your brain to know, to think intervals, to understand them permanently. Once you've worked enough with them, you just get how they work, and you're ready to build on top of that. So I'd encourage you to study, really get to know this stuff, figure it out. It's really, really useful knowledge and skills. And when you have that framework and that groundwork done, then when you're looking at chords, you have a lot more confidence in understanding them and how they're constructed and why. And you can start to tweak things and get creative and do so with confidence, knowing what you're doing. And it opens up a lot of avenues for creativity because you're understanding what you're manipulating. And you can think, well, what if this is built according to this rule, well, what if I tweak this rule a little bit, and what do I get? And you get some really neat results. So it's worth studying, and I would encourage you to figure it out. Good luck, and I hope this was helpful.